ship Horizon's edge drifted through a field of broken metal and shattered dreams. Captain Daniel Cole stood at the observation window and watched the debris flow past like dead leaves on a frozen pond. This sector had seen a battle 3 days ago. Two alien fleets had torn each other apart over territory that neither side would ever hold. Now all that remained was wreckage worth credits to those brave enough or desperate enough to collect it. It was both. He had been running salvage operations in the Outer Rim for 12 years. Before that, he had served as a combat medic in the coalition military. He had seen enough death to fill several lifetimes. These days, he preferred picking through the aftermath rather than creating it. His first mate, Laura, appeared beside him. She was a small woman with sharp eyes and an even sharper mind. She had served with Daniel since the beginning of his salvage career. She knew him better than anyone alive. "I was picking up something strange," she said. Her voice carried that careful tone she used when she did not want to alarm him but knew the news would anyway. Daniel turned from the window. "What kind of strange?" "Life signs, faint but definitely there, coming from that destroyer about 2 clicks off our port side." I looked at the ship she meant. It was a military vessel, or at least it had been. Now it was a broken shell leaking atmosphere and fluids into the vacuum. The entire forward section had been torn away by some massive weapon. Nothing should be alive in there. "Be a center ghost," he said. "Those ships use organic components. Sometimes they give off readings that look like life signs even after the crew is dead." Shook her head. "I thought so too, but I ran the scan 3 times. It's not organic ship matter. It's an actual living being, young based on the biorhythm patterns, and hurt badly." He closed his eyes. He knew what protocol demanded. Salvage operators did not get involved in alien conflicts. They did not pick sides. They did not rescue survivors who might bring trouble. They collected metal and sold it and stayed out of political messes that could get them killed. He had been a Meg once. He had sworn oaths about protecting life regardless of circumstance. Those oaths did not come with expiration dates. He called into the comm system. "Get the shuttle ready. Laura and I are going to check out the destroyer." Engineer Pete Dawson's voice came back immediately. "Captain, that's a terrible idea. We don't know what happened here. We don't know who won. We don't know if whoever did this is still watching." "Oh," Daniel said. "Get the shuttle ready anyway." Mince layered Daniel and Laura flowed through the broken quarters of the ship. Their suit light cut through darkness that seemed to swallow everything. The walls were scorching cracked. Bodies flowed in the zero gravity, frozen in the position of their final moments. Daniel had seen death before, but this was different. It was not battle damage alone. Some of these bodies showed signs of violence inflicted before the ship was destroyed. "Signal coming from the lower decks," Laura said. She checked her scanner again. "It's weaker now. Whoever's down there is fatting fast." Moved deeper into the ship. The destruction grew worse the further they went. Whole sections had collapsed. They had to cut through sealed doors and climb over piles of debris. The cold seeped through their suit despite the heating system. They reached a small storage compartment near the ship's core. The door was jammed, but Daniel forced it open with a pry bar. Inside, the room was dark except for a single emergency light that flickered weakly in the corner. There, wrapped in torn fabric and pressed against the far wall, was a figure. He moved closer. His light revealed pale blue skin and large dark eyes that stared at him with a mixture of fear and something else. Something that looked almost like hope being crushed before it could form. It was a girl, young by their standards, maybe equivalent to human teen hair. Her species was known throughout the galaxy for their elegant appearance and their remarkable ability to heal from injuries that would kill most other beings. The girl did not look elegant. She looked broken, literally broken. Even through the torn fabric, Daniel could see that her limbs bent at wrong angles. Her chest rose and fell with shallow breath that seemed to cause her agony. Dark bruises covered what skin was visible. She should not be alive. The pain alone should have killed her. "See," Daniel said softly. He knelt beside her, already pulling out his medical scanner. "We're here to help. My name is Daniel. I'm going to scan you to see how badly you're hurt." The girl's eyes widened. She tried to move away, but the movement made her cry out in pain. When she spoke, her voice was barely a whisper, rough and desperate. "No," she said in broken universal standard. "No help. Kill me, please. Kill me fast." Daniel froze. In all his years as a medic, he had never heard anyone beg for death with such certainty, such need. "Before they know," the girl continued, her dark eyes filled with tears that flowed away in the zero gravity. "Before they find out I live, kill me now. It is mercy, please." Or had moved closer as well. She looked at Daniel with an expression he could not quite read. "Daniel," she said quietly, "maybe you should listen to her. We don't know what's going on here. We don't know who she's running from." He looked at the broken girl before him. He saw the fear in her eyes. He saw the pain that went beyond physical wounds. He saw someone who had been so damaged by life that death seemed like the only escape. Reached for his scanner instead of his weapon. "What did this to you?" he asked. "Who are you running from?" The girl stared at him. Confusion flickered across her features. She did not understand why he was asking questions instead of granting her request. She whispered, "The Syndicate, they will come. They always come. And when they find me alive," she could not finish. Fresh pain crossed her face and she curled in on herself despite the agony it caused. He had heard of the Syndicate. Everyone in the Outer Rim had. They were criminals on a galactic scale. They dealt in weapons and drugs and things far worse. Things like people. He looked at the broken child and felt something harden in his chest. It was not anger exactly. It was something older and colder. It was determination. "Laura," he said, "help me get her to the shuttle. We're taking her back to the ship." Now, she asked us to kill her. Maybe she knows something we don't. He lifted the girl as gently as he could. She weighed almost nothing. Her bones shifted under his hands in ways that made his stomach turn. "Asked to die because she thinks death is better than what's waiting for her," he said. "I'm going to prove her wrong." The girl looked up at him with those dark eyes. Hope and terror fought for control of her features. She did not understand this human who refused to grant her mercy. She did not understand why he would risk himself for a stranger. He did not fully understand it himself, but he knew one thing with absolute certainty. He was not going to let this child die, not today, not if he could help it. Carried her toward the shuttle, and whatever future waited them both. The bay of the horizon's edge was not designed for alien patients. It was a small room with basic equipment meant for treating human injuries, broken bones and burns and the occasional radiation exposure. Nothing like this. Nothing like the shattered creature that now lay on the examination table. He stood over the girl with his scanner running continuous scans. Each new reading made him feel sicker than the last. He had seen terrible things in his years as a medic. He had treated soldiers torn apart by weapons and civilians caught in crossfire. But this was different. This was methodical. This was deliberate. "To me," Laura said from the doorway. She had her arms crossed and her expression was troubled. "How bad is it?" He did not answer right away. He was still processing the data on his screen. Finally, he turned to face her. Your bone in her body has been broken, he said. Not from the battle, not from the ship being destroyed. These breaks are older, some of them are partially healed, some are fresh. They were done over time, weeks, maybe months. His face went pale. You mean someone did this to her deliberately, multiple times? Daniel's voice was flat. It was the voice he used when emotions would not help. Her spine has been fractured in 4 places. Her arms and legs have been broken and reset at least twice each. Her ribs show repeat trauma. Whoever did this knew exactly what they were doing. They knew how much damage her body could take without killing her. The girl stirred on the table. Her eyes opened and she looked around the room with its same mixture of fear and confusion. When she saw Daniel standing over her, she flinched away. See, Daniel said. He moved to where she could see him clearly. You're safe. You're on my ship. No one is going to hurt you here. Why? The word came out as a croak. Why did you not kill me? He pulled a chair close to the table and sat down. He wanted to be at her eye level. He wanted her to see that he was not a threat. Because killing isn't help, he said. My name is Daniel. What's your name? Girl hesitated. Names had power. Names could be used against you. But something in this human's eyes made her want to trust him even though trust had only ever brought her pain. She said finally, I am cold. That's a beautiful name. Daniel leaned forward slightly. Can you tell me what happened to you? Who did this? Eyes darted around the room. She was looking for threats, looking for the trap she was certain must exist. Kindness without expectation was not something she understood. And poverty, she said. I belonged to the Syndicate. I was taken from my home world when I was small. I do not remember my family. I do not remember anything before the Syndicate. Or had moved into the room now. She stood near the door still, but her expression had shifted from caution to something sour, something that might have been compassion. Syndicate sell people, he said. It was not a question. They sell us, they trade us, they use us. My people can heal from injuries that kill other species. We can recover from things that should end life. Her voice broke slightly. The Syndicate use this. They hurt us knowing we will heal. They break us knowing our bones will mend. The pain never stops because the healing never truly ends. We are valuable because we can suffer forever. He felt his hands curl into fists. He forced them to relax. Anger would not help the girl. Broken bones, he said carefully. They did this to you on purpose. Schmidt whispered, for trying to escape. They break us when we disobey. They break us when we displease them. They break us to remind us what we are. Nothing. Property. Things to be used and discarded. The room was silent kept for the soft hum of the ship system. Sophie Grant appeared in the doorway. She was the youngest member of the crew at 23 years old. She handled communications and cargo manifests. She had never seen real violence in her life. Now she looked at with tears forming in her eyes. Could anyone do this? Sophie asked. Her voice was barely above a whisper. Looked at her with something like surprise. It is normal, she said. It is how things are. The strong take from the weak. The powerful use the powerless. Is it not the same everywhere? No, Daniel said firmly. It's not the same everywhere. Not among humans. Not among people who believe that every life has value. Stared at him. She did not seem to understand his words. The concepts behind them were foreign to everything she had ever known. Well, help me and then you will want something, she said. Pain, service, that is how it works. Nothing is free. Things are free, Daniel replied. Compassion, kindness, the belief that nobody deserves to suffer like you've suffered. He stood up and began preparing pain medication. I'm going to give you something for the pain. Then I'm going to set your bones properly so they heal straight. It's going to take time. Weeks maybe. But when we're done, you're going to be whole again. Then asked, when I am healed, what then? You will return me to the Syndicate for reward. You will sell me to someone else. And he'll stop what he was doing. He turned to face her directly. You're healed, he said. You're going to decide for yourself what happens next. For the first time in your life, you're going to have a choice. And whatever you choose will help you make it happen. Eyes filled with tears. She did not understand this human. She did not understand any of them. They spoke of choice and freedom and compassion as if these things were real, as if they existed outside of stories told to children. Something in Daniel's voice made her want to believe. Something in the way this crew looked at her with sadness instead of hunger made her think that maybe, just maybe, the universe was bigger than the cage she had always known. Syndicate will come, she said. They always come. They do not let property escape. Then come, Daniel replied. There was steel in his voice now, a hardness that spoke of battles fought in lines that would not be crossed. They're going to learn that some things aren't for sale, some people aren't property, and some humans don't know when to walk away from a fight. Administered the pain medication and watched his feet relax for the first time since they had found her. The lines of agony smoothed away. Her breathing deepened. She looked almost peaceful. Or touched Daniel's arm. You know what you're getting us into, she said quietly. The Syndicate doesn't forgive. They don't forget. No, Daniel said. He looked at the sleeping girl on the table, at the evidence of cruelty written across her broken body. Some things are worth the risk. Or stayed him for a long moment, then she nodded slowly. Okay, she said. Then we'd better start making a plan, because we're going to need one. And allowed himself a small smile. He did not know what the future held. He did not know if they could truly protect this broken child from the monsters who had made her what she was. But he knew one thing with absolute certainty. He was going to try, and he was not going to stop until he knew what it felt like to be free. Weeks passed aboard the horizon's edge. The ship continued its salvage work in the outer rim territories, but something had changed. The crew moved differently now. They spoke more softly near the metal bay. They smiled more often when they passed the observation deck, where a certain pale blue girl spent her afternoons watching the stars. It was healing. Her physiology was remarkable even by galactic standards. Bones that would take a human months to mend were knitting together in days. The bruises faded. The cuts closed. Her body remembered what it was supposed to be even after years of systematic destruction. Physical healing was only part of the journey. He sat with her every morning. He checked her vitals and adjusted her treatment and answered her endless questions about humans. She wanted to know everything. Why did they sleep so much? Why did they eat cooked food when raw was more efficient? Why did they form attachments to animals that served no practical purpose? Call them pets, Daniel explained one morning as he examined her left arm. The bone had set perfectly. In another few days she would have full use of it again. They're companions, friends. They make us happy. But they do nothing useful, said. She was genuinely confused. They do not work. They do not produce anything of value. Why keep something that only takes resources? Daniel smiled. Because value isn't just about what something produces. Sometimes the value is in the relationship itself, in the love that gets shared. Quiet for a long moment. She often did this when Daniel said things she did not understand. She would process his words carefully, turning them over in her mind like strange artifacts from an alien world. Love, she said finally. The word sounded foreign on her tongue. I have heard the word. I do not think I understand what it means. I'll set down his metal scare. He had been waiting for the conversation. He had known it would come eventually. Love is when you care about someone else's happiness as much as your own, he said. May more. It's when you would sacrifice things, important things, to keep another person safe. It's when seeing someone smile makes you smile too. But her head, this seems inefficient. Caring about others makes you vulnerable. It gives enemies something to use against you. Times, Daniel agreed. But it also makes us stronger in ways that are hard to explain. When you love someone and they love you back, you're not alone anymore. You have someone to fight for, someone to come home to, someone who makes all the hard things worth doing. Say stayed with for days. She thought about it while Laura taught her to read human books. Laura had started with children's stories, simple tales about friendship and courage and good overcoming evil, devoured them like water in a desert. She had never known stories could be about things other than suffering. Wilson surprised everyone by building her a spell chair. He was the ship's engineer, a gruff man who rarely spoke more than necessary, but he had noticed how struggled to sit comfortably while her spine healed. So he spent 3 nights in his workshop constructing a seat that supported her frame perfectly. When he presented it to her, he simply shrugged and walked away without waiting for thanks. Became her shadow. The young communications officer was closest to his apparent age, and she appointed herself as a companion to her guidance sitter. She showed every corner of the ship. She taught her how to play human card games. She braided hair when it grew long enough and told her stories about Earth, a planet had never seen but that sounded like paradise in Sophie's description. Of oceans, Sophie said one evening as they sat together in the observation deck. The stars wheeled slow past the viewport. Huge bodies of water so big you can't see the other side, and mountains that touch the clouds, and forests where the trees have been growing for thousands of years. It sounds beautiful, said softly. It is. May someday I can show it to you. Not know how to respond to that. The idea of a future, a real future with possibilities and choices, was still too new, too frail. She was afraid to believe in it completely. Night she could not sleep. The nightmares had returned as they often did. Dreams of breaking bones and scream voices, and the cold eyes of her maps watching her sorrow. She wandered the dark corridors until she found Daniel in the small galley, drinking something hot from a metal cup. Can't sleep, he asked. She shook her head and sat across from him. I have a question, she said. You have all been kind to me. Laura, Pete, Sophie, you most of all, but I still do not understand why. Daniel took a long sip from his cup. Does kindness need a reason? Everything has a reason, everything has a cost. I was taught this from the beginning. Nothing is given freely. Nothing comes without strings attached. Set down his cup. He looked at her with those strange human eyes that seemed to hold so much emotion. What they taught you because that's how they saw the world, he said. But it's not the only way to see things. Humans believe that compassion matters, that helping others isn't weakness, it's strength, that the measure of a person isn't what they take but what they give. And to strangers, even to people who cannot repay you. Especially to them, anyone can be kind when there's something in it for them. Real kindness is what you show when there's nothing to gain. Something shifted inside her. A wall she had built long ago began to crack. Behind it were emotions she had buried so deep she had forgotten they existed. Hope, trust, the terrifying possibility that she might actually be safe. I do not know how to be free, she whispered. I do not know who I am without the pain, without the fear. And reached across the table and took her hand. His skin was warm against her cool blue fingers. Figure it out, he said. That's what freedom means. You get to decide. You get to make mistakes and learn from them and try again, and you won't have to do it alone. Tears slid down his cheek, then another. She had not cried from emotion in years. She had trained herself not to. Tears were weakness, and weakness was punished. Here, in this small galley on this small ship with this strange human holding her hand, she finally let herself feel. The tears came faster, and she did not try to stop them. He moved around the table and held her while she cried. He did not speak. He did not try to fix anything. He just let her feel the grief and fear and hope that had been locked away for so long. The tears finally stopped, looked up at him with something new in her eyes, something that looked almost like peace. You, she said, for not killing me, for letting me live long enough to learn what kindness feels like. I smiled. You're welcome. Now let's get you back to bed. Tomorrow we start physical therapy. Your legs are nearly healed and I want to see you walking on your own soon. They walked back toward her room, felt something she had never felt before. She felt like she belonged somewhere, like she mattered to someone, like her life had value beyond what she could produce or endure. It was terrifying and wonderful, and she never wanted to lose it. Somewhere in the dark spaces between stars, the Syndicate was searching, and they would not stop until they found what belonged to them. It came at the worst possible time. The Horizon's edge was docked at a small trading station, restocking supplies and selling their lace salvage. Daniel was negotiating prices with a buyer when his comm unit buzzed with an emergency signal from the ship. Turned to find his crew gathered in the con room. Laura looked grim, Pete looked angry, Sophie looked scared, and stood in the center of them all with tears streaming down her face. What happened? Daniel asked. I handed him a daypad. We intercepted a Syndicate transmission. They know someone pulled a survivor from that destroyer. They're searching every ship in the sector. I scanned the transmission. The language was clinical and cold. It described the estate property. It listed the punishment for those who harbored stolen goods. It promised rewards for information and death for those who interfered. More said, her voice was steady despite the tears. I need to tell you something I should have told you from the beginning. The room went quiet. Daniel moved closer to her but did not touch her. He had learned that she needed space when difficult things needed to be said. I did not escape alone, continued. There were others, 30 of them, slaves like me who had been playing for months. We were supposed to meet at a rendezvous point if anything went wrong. A moon called 3. It has caves where ships cannot scan. We chose it because it was safe. What happened? Daniel asked. Went wrong? The Syndicate caught us before we could all get away. Some of us made it to ships. Others were captured. I ended up on that destroyer when it was attacked. I thought everyone else was dead, but now... She paused and looked at the daypad in Daniel's hand. The transmission mentions multiple units, multiple missing property. Some of them survived. Some of them might still be heading to the rendezvous. Locations hit Daniel like a physical blow. 30 escaped slaves, alone and afraid, heading toward a hidden meeting point while the Syndicate searched for them. If they reached 3 before anyone came for them, they would wait. They would hope, and eventually the Syndicate would find them. How long until the Syndicate figures out where the rendezvous point is? He asked. Do not know, days, maybe less. 3 is not obvious, but they have resources. They will check every possible location eventually. He looked around at his crew. These were good people, salvors who had chosen a quiet life picking through wreckage and staying out of trouble. They had not signed up for war. They had not signed up to fight the most dangerous criminal organization in the Outer Rim. To put this to vote, he said, what it's telling us means there are 30 innocent people waiting for rescue at a location the Syndicate will eventually find. We could try to reach them first. We could try to get them to coalition space where slavery is illegal, but it would mean risking everything. Our ship, our lives, everything we've built. We could do nothing, Lore said flatly. We could drop somewhere safe and go back to our lives, pretend we never heard any of this. Yes, Daniel agreed, that's the other choice. The room was silent for a long moment. Then Pete stepped forward. The gruff engineer rarely spoke in group discussions. When he did, people listened. I've been running from hard choices my whole life, he said. Told myself it wasn't my problem. Told myself someone else would handle it, but no one ever does. The universe doesn't fix itself. People do. And if we don't help those people, who will? He nodded quickly. His family now. That means her people are our people. I can't just walk away knowing 30 others are out there going through what she went through. Eyes turned to Laura. She was the pragmatist, the one who always counted costs and calculated risks. If anyone would argue against the mission, it would be her. It was quiet for a long time. Then she looked at with an expression that held something like respect. I didn't join this crew to watch children suffer, she said finally. If we're doing this, we do it smart, we plan, we prepare, and we give ourselves the best possible chance of surviving. I felt something loosen in his chest. He had not realized how much he needed their support until he had it. He said, can you help us? Do you know Syndicate patrol patterns, communicating codes, anything that might give us an advantage? To her eyes, when she looked at him, there was something new in her expression, determination, purpose. Many things, she said. I watched, I listened, I learned. The Syndicate thinks their slaves are too broken to pay attention. They are wrong. The next 2 days the plan proved invaluable. She knew what trade route the Syndicate avoided and what ones they watched closely. She knew the frequencies they used and the codes that changed every 72 hours. She knew where their ships refueled and where they had blind spots in their surveillance. He worked around the clock modifying the ship system. He installed salvage technology from a dozen different cultures, stealth plating from a scout ship, engine boosters from a racing vessel they had picked up months ago, jamming equipment that would scramble sensors for press scan. Plotted their course through the most dangerous sections of the Outer Rim. She found paths through asteroid fields and debris clouds that no sane pilot would attempt, paths that larger ships could not follow. If he set up communication arrays to monitor Syndicate transmissions in real time, she would be their ears, listening for any sign that they had been detected. Daniel prepared the metal bay. He did not know what condition the refugees would be in when they found them. He had to be ready for anything. The morning of their departure came to the bridge. She was walking on her own now, though still with a slight limp. Her bones had healed. The bruises were gone, but she was not the same frightened girl they had found in that wrecked ship. I want to help, she said. Not just with information. I want to come with you when we find them. They will be scared. They will not trust humans, but they will trust me. He'll hesitate. Taking her into danger felt wrong after everything they had done to keep her safe, but he understood what she was asking. She needed to be part of this. She needed to help save others the way she had been saved. Okay, he said, but you stay close to me. If things go bad, you get to safety first. No argument. For the first time since they had found her, she smiled. Jump to fat, the night travel was smooth. The horizon's edge shot through the stars toward a bare moon where hope waited in cold caves. We're 3 hours from 3 when the proximity alarm screamed to life. Context, Sophie called out, her voice tight with fear. Syndicate warship. They just dropped out of fat, the night travel right on top of us. And look at the tactical display. 3 ships, each one 5 times the size of his salvage vessel, each one carrying enough firepower to turn them into debris and sand. We're surrounded, and 40 lives depended on what they did next. All hands, Daniel said calmly. Battle stations, this is what we planned for. Grip the controls and waited for the storm to break. Syndicate commander's voice filled the bridge of the horizon's edge. It was smooth and cold, like ice sliding over stone. Known vessel, you're carrying stolen property belonging to the Syndicate. Power down your engines and prepare to be boarded. Return what belongs to us and you may leave with your lives. And looked at his crew. Laura's hands were steady on the navigation controls. Pete was monitoring the engine modifications from his station. Sophie's fingers flew across the communicating console and stood beside Daniel, pale but unafraid. This is your only warning, the commander continued. Humans are not worth the trouble of killing. You are weak, emotional. You form attachments to meaningless things like compassion and dignity. These weaknesses make you easy to manipulate and easier to break. Give us the slave and we will forget this happened. Now reach for the communication controls. He opened a channel that would broadcast on every frequency and range. Captain Daniel Cole of the Salvage Vessel Horizon's Edge, he said. The people you call property are not yours. They never were. They are survivors of systematic torture and abuse. They are living beings with the right to freedom and safety, and I am taking them home. Then the commander laughed. It was not a pleasant sound. You cannot escape. You cannot fight. You have nothing but words and foolish human emotions. What exactly do you think you're going to accomplish? Daniel smiled. Watch and learn. Cut the channel and turned to Laura. Now. Horizon's Edge dove. Laura had plotted their course through an asteroid field that bordered the system. The rocks ranged from the size of houses to the size of mountains. They tumbled and spun in chaotic patterns that made navigation a nightmare. For most pilots, Laura was not most pilots. Threaded the ship through gaps that seemed impossible. She used the asteroids as shields, keeping rock between them and the pursuing warships. The Syndicate vessels followed, but they were too large, too slow. They had to go around obstacles that Laura flew straight through. Falling behind, Sophie reported, but they're also calling for reinforcements, more ships incoming from the Outer Rim. How long, Daniel asked. 20 minutes, maybe less. Enough time? 3 was still 15 minutes away. Even if they reached the moon, they would need time to land and load the refugees. Time they did not have. Moved to the communicating console. Her hands trembled slightly, but her voice was strong. I want to tell them, she said. Everyone. I want them to know what the Syndicate does, what they did to me, to all of us. He hesitated for only a moment. Then he nodded. Open channel, all frequencies, every ship in range. Closed her eyes and began to speak. Her voice went out across the stars, reaching ships and stations throughout the sector. Ms., I was taken from my home when I was a child. I do not remember my family. I do not remember freedom. For as long as I have known, I have been property of the Syndicate. They broke my bones to punish me for dreaming of escape. They broke them again when I tried. They broke them so many times I lost count. My people heal from injuries that kill others. The Syndicate used this. They hurt us knowing we will recover. They torture us knowing we will survive. They are valuable because we can suffer forever. paused. The ship shook as debris struck the shields. Laura made another impossible turn through the asteroid field. Okay, others say it with me. 30 of us who would rather die free than live as things to be used and discarded. A human found me in the wreckage of a destroyed ship. I begged him to kill me. I thought death was the only mercy left, but he refused. He took me to his ship. He healed my broken bones. He showed me what kindness looks like, what compassion feels like. He taught me that the universe is bigger than the cage I always knew. Her voice broke slightly, but she continued. The syndicate wants us back. They say we are property. They say we belong to them, but I have learned something from these humans. I have learned that no one belongs to anyone, that every life has value, that suffering should not be ignored just because it is inconvenient. I do not know if we will survive today, but I know that I would rather die free, knowing what kindness tastes like, than live forever in chains. Closed the channel. The bridge was silent except for the sound of the ship straining against physics. Then Sophie gasped. I'm picking up new contacts, lots of them. Coalition patrol vessels changing course, independent traders moving to intercept the Syndicate ships, and, she paused, disbelief in her voice, a diplomatic ship is ordering the Syndicate to stand down. I stared at the tactical display. Ships were appearing from every direction. Some were military, some were civilian. All of them were moving toward the Syndicate warships with clear intent. Syndicate commander's voice came through again. This time there was uncertainty beneath the cold. It's not your concern. These are state property, internal Syndicate matter. The voice answered. It was deep and calm and carried the weight of authority. As captain of the Coalition Patrol Vessel Justice, we have received testimony of systematic abuse and enslavement. Under Coalition law, we are required to investigate. Power down your weapons and prepare to be inspected. You have no jurisdiction here. This is Outer Rim territory. You have jurisdiction everywhere that crimes against sentient beings are being committed. Stand down, or we will force you to stand down. Ships arrived. The Syndicate warships were now surrounded by a fleet that had assembled from nothing in minutes. Traders and patrol vessels, and even a diplomatic cruiser that had never taken sides in anything before. Human choice to show mercy had sparked something louder. One girl's voice telling her truth had awakened something in the hearts of everyone who heard her. Syndicate commander made a calculation. His ships were powerful but not powerful enough to fight the entire sector. Not over slaves, not over property that was quickly becoming a galactic incident. This is not over, he said. The Syndicate does not forget. Ships turned and jumped away. The threat evaporated as quickly as it had appeared. And let out a breath he had not realized he was holding. Laura slumped in her chair. Pete laughed, a sound of pure relief. Sophie was crying. Stood at the viewport, watching the stars with wonder in her eyes. Landed on 3 an hour later. The caves held exactly what it promised. 30 refugees huddled together in the darkness, too afraid to hope, and other species, young and old, all bearing the marks of systematic abuse, all terrified that rescue was a trap. Walked into the cave, the refugees saw her. They recognized one of their own, and they began to cry. Journey to Coalition Space took 3 days. The horizon's edge was escorted by a fleet of volunteer ships that had appointed themselves protectors. News of broadcasts had spread across the galaxy. People wanted to help. People wanted to be part of something good. And they finally docked at a Coalition station. Officials were waiting. Proper officials who handled refugee cases, who would help these broken people find new lives in places where slavery was forbidden. They stood at the airlock and watched the refugees disembark. One by one they stepped into freedom, many of them for the first time in their lives. Some walked, some had to be carried. All of them were crying. The last to leave, she stood before Daniel with those large dark eyes that had seen too much suffering. What will you do now? Daniel asked. Do not know, she admitted. I have never had a fear before. The concept is still strange to me. Daniel smiled. That's the beautiful part. You get to figure it out. You get to decide who you want to be. Back at the ship, at Laura and Pete and Sophie who had become our family, at the small vessel that had carried her from death to life. Will I see you again? She asked. Whatever you want, we're never far away. Prized him then. She stepped forward and wrapped her arms around him. Her embrace was gentle but firm, the embrace of someone who had finally learned what love meant. Thank you, she whispered, for refusing to kill me, for showing me that the universe contains more than pain. Released him and walked down the ramp into her new life. Daniel watched her go with something warm and proud swelling in his chest. And when the ship was quiet and the crew was resting, he stood alone at the observation window. The stars stretched endlessly before him. Billions of worlds, trillions of lives, so much suffering and so much beauty, often existing side by side. Could not save everyone, he knew that. One ship, one crew, one human could not fix everything broken in the galaxy. It saved 41 people today. 41 lives that would go on to touch other lives. 41 stories that would be told and retold, spreading the idea that compassion mattered, that kindness had power, that the smallest act of mercy could change the entire universe. Sometimes the greatest strength was not military power or technological superiority. Sometimes it was simply the refusal to look away from suffering, the stubborn human belief that everyone deserved a chance. He smiled at the stars and thought about tomorrow. There was so much more to do.